Welcome, everybody, to session 3 in our Vibing in the Virtual Space. We are so excited to be back together with you in partnership with BGCA. My friends and colleagues from Vox, Rich Eldridge, and Josie Footman-Smith are here to bring you some examples of how we live into Success Principle 7, youth input and leadership, as well as creating inspiring, creative, and courageous spaces in digital and hybrid programming. So, without further ado, of course, a reminder that one of our digital tools is always you can unite your community by creating a playlist. We'll invite all the other PPTAs to add their ideas too. And this will live at BGCA Creates. And I'll just give you a real quick overview of what we're going to do today. Of course, we always start with a little technology check to model what we do with our youth and make sure that we're leveling the playing field. And we'll have our mindful moments, some interactive introductions. And then you're going to hear from Josie as our program director and Rich as a practicing professional teaching artist, a journalist, about how we create scaffolded learning experiences for teens and with teens that bring the magic of our in-person programming into digital and virtual programming as well. Sarah Grizzle is here from BGCA Creates with Rebecca to connect the magic of the youth input and the program design that we're going to be bringing to you to the BGCA tools that y'all have and that you're using to plan for your next semester. And then, of course, we'll invite your feedback. And that's our time together today. With that, I'm going to turn it to Josie for a quick intros.
Good afternoon, everybody. As Rachel said, my name is Josie. I am the program director for Vox, and I use she, her pronouns. A little bit about Vox, you can see our mission statement is up here. We are an out-of-school time organization that uses the platform of journalism and leadership to lead our youth voice movement, empower youth voice, and action in the community. We're an uncensored platform, but as our editor team likes to say, we're not unedited. So we've been around since 1993, and we serve up to 150 teens each year in our out-of-school time programming, and then even way more than that in our community outreach and workshop-based work. So we definitely focus on training and facilitation as ways to increase youth impact and for them to further hone their voices. And I will pass it to my colleague, Rich, to introduce himself.
Thanks, Josie. Hi, I'm Rich Eldridge. It's wonderful to see you all this afternoon. I have been Vox's senior editor. This is my 9th anniversary at Vox. And so I want to introduce you to something that we do every time young people gather together at Vox, which is our go-around. And so it's a go-around question. Our teens come up with the go-around question. And pretty much what we've done in the virtual space is we look to the person next to us in the box to pass it to. Normally we are in a circle and we pass it to the person on either side of us. We pass it to the person in the box next to us now in our virtual world. So basically it's always name, your pronoun, age, and your club organization role. And the go-around question for the day would be one thing you're grateful for today. And so as it sounds like maybe it's taking a little bit of time to get into our program design activities here. What I wanted to explain to you we call them our little meta moments at Vox. And what that means is we're actually modeling one part of the design, creating a connected and inspiring space that is crucial to foster creativity and participation. So with that said, let me model. So my name is Rich Eldridge. I am Vox's senior editor. I'm 56. My pronouns are he, him. And one thing I'm grateful for today is to really be a part of this session, to get to meet other people doing this work with young people, and especially in the middle of a pandemic, getting to learn from you all. I'm going to pass it.
So, Midge and Alana, Gabby, y'all have been with us for a minute here. I'm wondering if one of you would be willing to take the lead to describe some of the Zoom features that we've been using in our name tags. We usually put our name and our organization and pronouns if that feels comfortable. Somebody walk us through that.
I can do it. So to change your pronouns, you just hover your mouse over your face in the box, and then you click the little 3 dots up in the right corner, and then you go down to rename, and you'll be able to rename yourself.
What about if you're on a phone? I think that if you click the participants on the phone, you should be able to rename yourself just like when you're hovering over your name on a computer screen, just by tapping my Zoom screen. You should be able to bring up those functions. You can also bring up your annotation tool function by tapping on your Zoom screen if you're on a mobile device. Let's walk through annotation as well. The annotate tool is where you can literally write on the presenter's screen. On the phone, on your Zoom screen, you literally just tap the screen and that little blue pencil icon will come up. That's going to give you, if you tap the pen or the highlighter or the arrow, that's going to give you the opportunity to write on the presenter's screen. And we're going to practice that in a minute. For those of us on a laptop, can somebody walk us through it?
This is Rebecca. When you're on a computer screen, so it could be a laptop or a desktop, I assume it's the same. Way up at the very top, there is a little button that says View Options, and you click on Annotate, and it brings up a little toolbar right at the top of your screen where you can do all of the different things: text, draw, stamp, erase some things, all sorts of cool stuff.
Well, Josie's going to advance us to the next screen and we're going to give it a try in an activity that is another just good youth development practice, is checking for people's social emotional well-being.
Indeed. So I think some of y'all have done this before, but this is a quick, like Rachel said, social emotional check-in. You can use it as a temperature check as well, just to see where people are. A part of being trauma-informed and trauma-based is making sure to check in with people to see where they're at when they come into your program. So you're going to take the skills from the previous slide and you're going to annotate. You can either do initials or you can drop a stamp in terms of just like where you're at today, where you're feeling on this kind of emoji scale.
It is a really great way to get your young people to be hands-on in your program design. So that's success principle 7, really lifting up their voices. We're going to take a quick look at another way to use annotation in a second. You can also save the image of what's been created by the community. So you might have drawn something together. You might have, say community ground rules or a brainstorm or an event planning document, and you want to save it. At the top of that toolbar, your annotation toolbar, all the way to the right, you can see a little tool that says save, and it literally downloads your screen as an image for you. Oh, Josie, before we move on to the next session, will you talk a little bit about the mindfulness approach that you bring to our work and that the teens have started bringing themselves?
Yeah, sure. Rich jumped into this a little bit earlier with the something I'm grateful for, and you can absolutely use a mindful moment as a dual like go around question. But another way to use that activity is to just have people write it down. Some people want to think about it, spend some time. Some other activities that we've done at Vox is the breath of joy, which I think is linked here and that y'all get after this, but it's a way to get up and move your body. Same with sun salutations. If you're familiar with yoga, you may be familiar with what a sun salutation is. It's definitely a way in the virtual space for people to be able to get up and move around a little bit after maybe sitting at a screen all day. breathing is definitely a good technique for anxiety or just stopping and being present in the current moment. And same with visualization and body scanning, just being aware and taking a moment and being able to slow down. If people are particularly wound up, or if there's a lot of things on in the media, as if like right now that are traumatic or anxiety inducing, it's definitely always good to introduce strategies that teens can just use with you, or even when you're not there, that are easy and very tangible, that they can use to get out of their own head, be in the moment, and really like cope.
One of the other practices, as you know, that we always bring to our sessions is agreements or ground rules. So everything that we've talked about so far are the youth development best practices that we know that y'all bring to your program design, and building in time for these practices is what creates the space, the space for focus, for creativity, for courage. So ground rules, as y'all know, we really endorse inviting young people to co-create the rules that they need for the space. And that's what helps them hold each other accountable. We've used 2 different digital tools in creating ground rules among PPTAs so far. On the left here, you see the use of the annotation tool. In Zoom, we used an acrostic where we invited everybody to think about what is something that you need for this training in this community of teaching artists to feel like you can be successful. And the acrostic is it's just a gimmick. It's just a framework to get people to start talking. The other tool that we used was Padlet. And so where you see the pink and purple background, those were the ground rules that were lifted up last month when we used that tool. Now I want to invite us, instead of recreating doing ground rules again, what we really wanted to model was the importance of bringing the group's ground rules back to each session and creating a sense of intentionality and use of those ground rules. So I wanted to ask you all, first of all, is there anything that needs to be added? Is there something missing here for any of you to be able to get what you need from this session, from this community? The other invitation that we have for you is we'd like for you to practice using your annotation tool. So go back up to the green bar where it says view options and click annotation. In the annotation tool, click view options and then annotate. Your toolbar should come up. The second tool from the left is the text tool. So click text and then click somewhere on the screen, and you should be able to type your offering onto the screen. It will appear when you click off. One of the things that we wanted to offer you is a look at specifically how young people's voices and input really can shape both the design of the program as well as individual scaffolded learning sessions. And the most important thing that we do in our organization to infuse our work with youth voice is ask the question, so what? It might sound a little crass, like, so what? But what it really means is, what difference do you want to make by being in this program? What difference do you want this experience to make in your life or for other people? What is the so what for you? And the interesting thing is, a couple of decades later, as our alumni come back and visit, one of the things that they say they remember the most is learning how to ask the question, so what? And it guides their involvement in future organizations, their journey through college, career. It's really fascinating. The other way to think about it is a notion of asking young people, what is the output? What's the prize that they want to create as a result of being in this program or this art class? The prize might be a published piece of work. It might be a choreographed piece of dance. It might be a poem, but asking them to name the prize is critical to involving their input and then, of course, their excitement and their buy-in. After we get their input on what the purpose of their involvement is, what is the prize or the payoff that they're looking for, we just do the age-old backwards planning with them. If a publication needs to be out by a certain date, or a culminating event is happening on a certain date, asking the group, what do you think we need to do to get to that point, to make that difference you want to make, is a simple but really clear process for doing program planning with young people. So Josie's going to make that come alive in an example that we've brought to you today.
Cool, thanks, Rachel. Yeah, like Rachel said, backwards planning is just starting with the end in mind, and I'm going to give a couple of quick examples about how I plan programming out with Vox. So when we're planning a big project or a program activity or program in general, these are the steps that I tend to use, setting a baseline and planning benchmarks. So with planning benchmarks, that's your openings and closings. At Vox, beginnings and endings are really important because we want to make sure that when we get started, we're able to gauge where everybody is at. We assess our outputs and goals. Of course, us at Vox have our own ideas around like the skills that we want to teach, what things align with our mission. And if you have a logic model or know what a logic model is, what our outputs are on there in terms of grant funding and things like that. But we definitely want to make sure that we are soliciting youth voice and input and allowing them to weigh in. So the example that I wanted to use to make sure that this is a little bit more tangible is Vox Media Cafe. Vox Media Cafe is our summer program, and we spend 2 weeks with a group of teens, and we do that 3 times around teaching journalism skills and multimedia skills. And then at the end of their 2 weeks, they are able to present out a multimedia package. So from the very beginning, we focus on incorporating youth voice and choice. So when they sign up or apply to be a part of our program, we make sure that on our application, we ask them, you know, what are some of the things that you're interested in doing? We want to make sure that people have an opportunity to weigh in on what's important to them, what they really are excited to learn, or maybe just like what skills they already have, where is their starting point. We make sure that we also solicit advice from previous participants. So if there's somebody that is a teen that has already gone through our program, we send out a survey, we have a closing where we assess what went well, what's working, and we choose youth leaders. So we have a training program where we have interns and editors each semester, and especially in our summer programming to help support the work and make sure that it's Voxy, it's fun, it's engaging to them, and it's things that they are able to do and enjoy doing. So we go through with our teens in the summer a week-long training program so that they're able to not only support the programming and how that is implemented, but also to support their peers, guiding their peers through the process. Sometimes you just need somebody that is not an adult telling you how to do something instead of just being an adult and giving them orders. We never order anybody around. So making sure that we have people in place that are able to guide and that we're serving as leaders on the side or guides on the side. So the first step is making sure that you have your ending in place. You know what you want your end goal to be or your end activity to be, making sure that your team knows what role they play, what support they need from each other. Rich supports and my colleague Maurice that isn't here, and making sure that all of the programming is multimedia aligned, that make sure that the teens have a say and are engaged, and help create and make things come alive. For incorporating youth voice and choice, like I said, there are multiple touch points that you can use, and you don't have to use all of them, but the more the better, making sure that people feel like they have a say in the process and that you're flexible as the process goes on. So what we do is along the way, we have different touch points in place. And this doesn't necessarily have to be somebody filling out a survey. It can be something like in the closing, what's one glow that you have from this week and what's one grow you have from this week. So like, what's one thing that you really enjoyed, went well for you, and what's one thing that maybe was a challenge or that can be improved. So making sure that we're taking time along the way to give agency and choice to everybody who is a part of our program is really important. Moving on, this is just kind of like an overview. So these are like the pieces. So we take the outputs and the goals. So we say, hey, on Monday, this is the program that we ended up designing in the virtual space. We got some feedback on the front end and we were like, hey, this program is currently set up this way, but we're gonna have to take it online. What do y'all want to do? What are the things you're most excited about learning? And like, when do you want to meet? So this is typically a Monday through Friday program. And people are like, yeah, I don't really feel like I can sit on a Zoom call 8 hours a day for 5 days a week. So we're like, okay, cool. Instead of doing 5 days, we're going to do 3. And instead of doing 8 hours, we're going to have 3-hour sessions with breaks in between. So this is what we ended up landing on. And people were like, yeah, we really want to know about journalism. We really want to know how to interview people. And then we really want to know how to create blogs. So this is how we were able to pivot. We came with a high level focus and then activities based on the skills that we wanted to implement. So journalism basics, interviewing, opinion writing. So we still have our baseline, we still have our outputs, but we let them weigh in on the ones that were most important to them, and we're able to make that come alive. And without further ado, I'm actually going to pass it to my colleague Rich, who is going to talk about how he went from the macro to the micro and worked with the teens on actual activities to make them feel very fun and engaging.
Thanks, Josie. So it is my pleasure to introduce you to a couple of our greatest hits at Vox. I want to start off with showing you one part of our Vox Media Cafe, which is our summer program, and it's a 2-week immersive experience for young people where we meet them where they happen to be skills wise. So you might have a young person who just turned 13 who's a part of our summer program who wants to learn more about journalism. You might also have a 17-year-old in that same program who is the editor-in-chief of their school publication. So it's meeting them where they are. And one of the most fun things that we do at VMC is interviewing day. Which was something that I helped create with a cohort of teens 9 years ago. We've tweaked it every single year since. And on the left, you'll see what interviewing day in person in our downtown newsroom looks like. So we actually have a red carpet. We do this fun thing in the morning with a red carpet. And so it's a fun way to introduce the concept of interviewing. Our teen interns have the option, they get to choose what celebrity they would like to play on the red carpet. So you might have Beyonce, you might have Hillary Clinton, it really depends. And then our teen VMCers, our reporters who are actual program participants, they get to choose the media outlet they want to represent. So the person who selects CNN will be put at one place on the carpet. The person who is a blogger, they might get put at a very different place on the red carpet. And so it's a really fun, interactive way to kind of kick the tires on asking questions in real time. And the great thing about the red carpet is that it moves quickly. Maurice Garland, our publishing director, and I, again, we're both we're teaching artists. The equivalent of teaching artists at Vox is working journalists. So Maurice and I have both been working journalists in Atlanta for many years. We actually have both worked red carpet situations, so we can actually bring that to our young people, and so they feel all the fun and also the scariness of asking questions in real time. The great thing is it's our teens playing Beyonce and not the real thing. And so when we had to move to the virtual space this summer because of COVID-19, we found a way to recreate the interviewing day experience. And so when we were in person, consistently, Atlanta singer-songwriter Doria Roberts would come in. She'd play a mini set for our reporters, and then she would take questions for 30 minutes. And so what they would do is they would research Doria's career, and then they had an opportunity to ask questions for 30 minutes. This summer, in a virtual space, Keisha Jackson, who is normally touring with Outkast as a vocalist in the touring group of Outkast, she was hanging around the house, and she was able to be our kind of celebrity interview for our young people. And I also wanted to walk you through one of our new programs at Vox that our teens have named Cooking It Up or Keeping It Voxy. And this is a series of cooking workshops. We piloted it last school year. And as you'll see in the left, back in the good old days when we were actually able to get into our kitchen, when we had to move online during COVID, our development director, Allison Hood, actually delivered ingredients to each teen who was participating in Cooking It Up. And so each teen would be on camera and we made quesadillas. Emma took the cheese version in her kitchen and showed us how to make delicious quesadillas with cheese. And then Adam walked us through a vegan version in his kitchen. And the absolute best thing about moving Cooking It Up to the virtual space was we were able to retain my favorite part of Cooking It Up. And that is everybody gathering together at the end of the session, their food, and talk about what they learned, providing some feedback on challenges that they experienced. Okay, knife work is really challenging. I didn't know that was going to be, challenging. But I also learned X, Y, and Z. It's always an opportunity for them to not only eat and experience fellowship together, but also talk about what's next. Like, what do they want to learn next? And what do they want to cook next? And so Emma, as the lead facilitator, would bring those notes to our next semester and create programming derived from the teen feedback.
So the purpose of this was it to post on YouTube, or was it a teaching video for other teens to watch, or was it just an in-house fun activity?
Two things. The prize for Voxers, they stated that they wanted to add culinary tools to their toolbox. And the more immediate prize was getting to eat a delicious meal together.
I would also say this works really well for community building and just spending more time getting to know your teens in a low stakes environment where they can be active and participating in something creative.
Putting it on Instagram and celebrating their story that way was as much of a prize as building the community.
Actually got a question for you all. Particularly when you're doing this scaffolded programming, how do you kind of handle maybe attendance issues, right? If young people aren't consistently coming or kind of drop in and out, how are you handling that virtually?
Yeah, so we actually, that's a part of the midway check-in points and soliciting feedback on the way. I've sent out many a poll around like, hey, it looks like, we've had 2 meetings scheduled on this day and it doesn't seem to be working for y'all. Is there a day that you would prefer? And then we've also started recording things as well. So that that's one of the cool benefits of the virtual space, so that if people don't actually physically attend, they can come back and view the program or the skill building activity later on.
And I want to normalize too the different levels of engagement that young people have based on what's going on in their lives. So the teens who opt more fully in are those who take leadership commitments, and we let them know in advance what it means to be a peer leader in the program. So if you are taking on an editor position, you are signing up for a particular role, and then you're trained to let us know, like, wait, this emergency came up, or this unexpected thing happened, and then they're accountable to the group to make sure that their role is covered. It also lets for lower levels of engagement, frankly. If a young person is in a space where it's more of a drop-in opportunity for them, and they come to some of the program activities, they may not be published as frequently. they may not learn as many of the skills. They may not hone as many of the skills as the young people who are more frequent participants will learn. But when Rich talks about meeting everybody where they are, we can still support a young person in completing the achievement of their prize, whatever that is. So they can go through the poetry crafting process or the video making process at their own pace. Um, so whereas one person might publish a multimedia package that has reporting and multiple interviews and a video, or it's a complex podcast with their own piece of art, somebody else might um, have a smaller prize or output, but still have benefited from going through the program.
Mitch had a question in the chat around, do we have rules around turning on cameras? And we do not have rules around that. We recognize that there are a lot of layers to that and technology challenges. Sometimes people don't have a space where they can meet without distractions in the background or noises. Sometimes they're unable to turn on cameras due to technology issues and bandwidth. So we typically don't. We encourage people, like, if you can turn your camera on, please do, because we would love to see you and check in with you to face. And the only time we're a little bit more strict around that is with our trained facilitators. If they're facilitating a workshop, especially in the community, we want them to be able to have that type of connection of being able to look somebody in the face and see that they're actually a person behind the screen. So in that instance, we do encourage our peer leaders and facilitators when they can to turn their cameras on, or to give a reason as to why they can't turn their cameras on when they're engaging with other people.
I wanted to ask one thing before we move on, kind of circling back to the conversation that we were having earlier around the cooking, and how, Rachel, your inclination at first was, well, we're a media program. Let's find a way to drive an outcome that's media through this. And I thought that that was really interesting. And it brought a question up for me, which is, how do you balance remaining flexible to your youth needs and their input on what they want to do, and still needing to drive a particular outcome that might be the mission of your particular program or organization?
I think for me, and I'll let Rachel and Rich weigh in on this too, but it's about being transparent on the front end about and letting them in on the planning process ahead of time about what our goals and outputs are, and letting them help set those goals and outputs. So like going back to that, what's the so what? Like, hey, why are we here, y'all? We spend a lot of time when Voxers are coming in talking about what Vox is, the mission of Vox, and then having them set their ground rules and expectations so that when it comes time for them to weigh in, they're not like, hey, let's just all party and hang out. Like, they know that there's an output to be invested in. They know, like I said, going back to those endings, that there's an ending in mind. They know that there's a showcase they need to plan for, or a print edition that they need to do. And a lot of the times they're really excited to have their work out there. They know the importance of being able to showcase, and they see value in people being able to see what they can do, having the opportunity to express themselves in ways that a lot of the times they don't get to, and they value that. So it's about aligning values and goals.
I've always likened it to a Gaga pit. So Gaga is, consider it like a big sandbox. Gaga is a game that it's like you play in this pit. So there's like a guardrails around the side. You're in this like container where there's like a wall that's like 2 feet high, and it's like dodgeball within this container. So anything that happens within the framework, totally free reign. I mean, you can't like hit each other in the face, and there's like ground rules of, the rules of engagement, but it's kind of anything goes. And when you involve young people in establishing the Gaga pit or the sandbox or whatever those guardrails are, and then they have all the freedom in the world to bounce around within there, that's when the magic happens. So like Josie was explaining, we have clear like beginnings and ends. And there's like some things that we do that it's just what we do. Like we are incorporated to work with youth in the Metro Atlanta area. We do publish teen created nonfiction media. We are uncensored and not unedited. So we follow the Society of Professional Journalists Code of Ethics and the First Amendment. Those are our guardrails. And we encourage the freedom of expression and the implementation of art within those guardrails. Josie doesn't ask the teens, do you want the summer program to start on June 3rd? Or like, we don't get input on everything. Like, she uses her expertise in youth development, in understanding when schools are letting out and when they're back in, and she establishes the guardrails. We're going to have 3 2-week sessions of this Vox Media Cafe program. We do publish uncensored but not unedited content. We know there's going to be peer leaders. Bounce around in that gaga pit, will you? Tell us what will be fun and what will work for you.
And Rachel, just adding on to that, Vox, of course, is a teen-led after-school program and a Saturday program. So that is when most of our teens, when we're not in the pandemic, are in our space. And so food and nutrition and healthy meals are hardwired into our mission. And when the teens, and again, it's teen-led. So when the teens said, "Hey, this is something that we want to learn," we want to create a series of workshops around it. It just felt like a natural extension of what we were already doing.
It's also an extension of those quality standards. So whether you're looking at PQA or if you're in Georgia like us and you've got the Georgia quality standards, nutritional snacks and provisions for youth are as much a part of quality as like using the technology tools, right? Or the artistic tools that the success principles are based around.
So our goal really at Boys and Girls Clubs is to create environments for youth that are physically and emotionally safe, filled with supportive adults who create opportunities for them to try things, improve their skills, while also having high expectations for their success now and in the future, all while having fun and cultivating a sense of belonging for all. Club staff may recognize those. Those are our 5 key elements for positive youth engagement. That's really the basis for the work that we do at the Boys and Girls Club. And a great thing about those is I was, first of all, hearing them all echoed in what Vox told us today. And they can happen whether you are in your art studio or in the games room or in a Zoom room, right? They can happen anywhere throughout your program. In 2018, we undertook a full overhaul of BGCA's program planning resource called Program Basics. With clubs working alongside us the entire way, we ended up being like a suite of tools, including the blueprint, which I have my hard copy that I treasure here. This is our kind of manual with all of the basics. The YD Toolbox app, which is a library of quick tools like community builders and reflections. We've got playbooks, which are specific smaller guides focused on either areas of the club, like there's one for the games room, or this one, A Time of Day. This is all about transitions within your club. We've got training on Spillett Leadership University, which you all have access to through bgca.net. That's got trainings on all of these things, all of these basics, as well as offerings from the Weichert Center for Youth Program Quality, which includes one on the basics of integrating youth voice. So that's one I would recommend you all go look at. And the Program Basics Planner, which Rebecca is going to walk us through in just a moment. And all of these resources together are designed to really give you the structure for your successful program so that you can hang whatever you're working on top of that structure. We kind of helped to give you that groundwork so that you can focus on what is really important, which are connecting with your young people and then bringing in your subject matter expertise. So Rebecca, if you want to show us the planner.
So I have two different tools that I'm going to show you guys today. So I'm going to start here at programbasicsplanner.com. And this is a great resource for all of the PPTAs that you work with in your organization, as well as people like your club director, your program director, because we go through every level of planning, all the way from annual planning down to your daily session planning. So what I wanted to show specifically here is just some of the functionality. So you'll see you can go to different sections by taking your cursor over. And what you'll want to do, I'm going to go into weekly sessions and hit begin. I thought this might be a good place to really showcase, because what this is it's a great tool for you as PPTAs to really get your hands on not only some information about what it might look like to build a weekly schedule that really infuses those 5 key elements, but also gives you something like this sample weekly schedule and then a blank version. So if you're looking to really start planning new schedules, maybe you're doing something new in the virtual space now or with hybrid schedules, we actually have a blank one that you can use to get you started. We also go into what high yield learning activities really are, and then look at planning those sessions. And so what it talks about here is the different pieces that should be within each of your sessions that you plan. And then it also has down at the bottom a really great resource here that you can download a PDF that has all of the elements of your sessions. And then again, another blank template that you can utilize. The other thing that I wanted to highlight here is the resources tab. So I'll just click into that next one by that arrow at the bottom of the screen. And you'll see here, there are just a ton of resources that really are targeted at supporting your planning, whether that be annual, seasonal, or those weekly session plans. So you can look at some of the different PDF downloads we have available, different guides that should help with thinking about some of the different planning aspects that you might want to work into your programming. And then also down here, we have some different recorded webinars that really focus on some different spaces. I highly recommend looking into Virtual Club and Back to Club. Those can be very helpful, I think, as you continue to move forward with some of your planning. I'd also recommend workforce development, because as we know, the arts and workforce can be very intertwined, right? They feed off of each other, especially as we explore these really high quality tools that we use. And so there are some great nuggets in that workforce development space that you might be able to incorporate into your programming. The other resource that I wanted to show you looks very similar, but this is the virtual club planner. So you'll start to notice as you explore more BGCA resources that they all have a very similar look and feel. And this is really to help with sort of ease of access as you go across these different sites. So with the virtual club planner, this is a little bit less tactical. There are a little bit of, there are not as many like templates and things on here, but what this is really designed to do is engage you in a thoughtful process of what a virtual club is going to look like for you and your organization. Now, many of you at this point probably have some level of virtual programming going on. This is a great place to come to really take a deeper dive into how you can continue to grow that program and really reach your youth and meet them where they are. So you'll see this has a very similar functionality again. You can cursor over to get to the different sections. And then what I wanted to show you here is a couple of different things. So in virtual club design, you may find some things that are helpful when we're really talking about safety and policy, and then when we're also talking about things like parent communication. So I'm going to scroll down and just show you those sections here. Some of you also may find some helpful information in school partnerships. I know that several of you are partnered with schools. When we're talking about parent communication, we have some great resources linked in here, different apps that you might want to try or you might already be using. And then also have some more about our safety recommendations and examples of things that we're seeing in other clubs, which is really helpful. I was in a webinar the other day and I was reminded of the BGCA saying of, when you've seen one Boys and Girls Club, you've seen one Boys and Girls Club, because every single one is different. So it's always really great to see what other clubs are doing and to learn from some of their promising practices. And then this really important piece here, which is the safety and policy piece, you'll find down here some really great document resources so that you can learn more about some of the safety policies and recommendations that we really would encourage you to learn more about as you continue to implement virtual programming. Then down at the bottom, here there is a little bit of a deeper dive into virtual programming and My Future. If you haven't been using My Future with your members, highly recommend it as, at minimum, a supplement to any virtual programming that you are doing. We have been adding tons of content. It was just relaunched. It is gorgeous.
I was going to say,
actually,
it has recently undergone a complete transformation. There are over 400 activities there, some that are designed just for teens.
That's
and
what I was going to say too.
We've been hosting live events through there. There was actually one today while we were in this session featuring a WWE superstar. So really cool stuff happening over on My Future. If you're not, it used to be a little terrible, I'm going to be honest. You can keep that in the recording. But it is just fabulous now. So please, I love it.
Yes. And I mean, as you can tell, Sarah and I are very excited about it. But some of the things that are on there that really can bolster your programming are going to be the new teen section, because I know many of you work with preteen and teens. So there's going to be some great programming in there for them to take part in. And those live events that Sarah was mentioning really are targeted at our teen and preteen population. So great for them to get involved in those. Again, we keep adding more things. We just added another collection of arts activities that really talk about like the basics of art and really give sort of an in route to maybe a member who has never done art programming before in a club. So definitely worth exploring. Create yourself an account on there. Look at some of the facilitator notes that are on there. A really, really great resource.
Also great data tools on My Future, particularly as you're doing grant reporting.
So let me go. There was one more thing on here. Let me find where I wanted to go. In additional resources. So additional resources is the other page that I think that you will find particularly helpful. And one of the things that I did want to highlight here is, I know that all of our clubs that we work with in YAI have a lot of support, but I wanted to highlight that we are offering additional support outside of the Youth Arts Initiative that I would love to see you guys take advantage of. One of those new resources is these live consultations with a BGCA staff person. So you can actually go right here where it says submit on additional resources, and you can book a live consultation with a BGCA professional. It's a great way to reach out to folks from other core program areas like emotional wellness, or maybe you want to do some sort of integrated sports and arts activity, and you want to talk to someone about that, or somebody from our teens team. So highly recommend taking advantage of those live consultations. You'll also find on the additional resources page all of the things that Sarah has been talking about. We've got the Youth Development Toolbox on there. We've got links to our program basics. We have all the things. Now, I know that we're running a little short on time. So the last thing that I wanted to talk with you guys about is what is next. So we've taken this time today to really talk about what does it look like to develop these great programs, but you have to make them, right? You have to come up with the ideas, you have to plan them. And so what we're going to be offering to all of our teaching artists on December 9th is a session that's going to be highly interactive and is a place where you can actually bring a program that you have been developing, maybe a program that you have run before, an idea for a program that you have, bring it to the space and work with your peers to really think through, how is this going to look? Maybe you want to try out a new community builder. Maybe you want to go through an activity and say, oh, I really want to do this, but there's so many supplies. How can I do this with less supplies? So we're going to really go through whatever you need to support you planning your next programs that will come in the new year. So again, that's going to happen on December 9th. And the last thing that I want to highlight in my screen share here is that prior to coming to that space on the 9th, I would really like you guys to be thoughtful about what you're going to bring to that space. And if you're kind of struggling with, I don't know what I want to bring, I'm not quite sure if this is the idea, you can head over to BGCA Creates. And in the forums channel, we have created a new channel called Youth Arts Initiative. And you can actually go in there and talk with everybody about all the things YAI. And I would love to see you guys get on there and start talking to each other about some of these plans so that you're all really prepared for that session on the 9th.
Y'all, we are so grateful and excited that BGCA asked us to partner in support of your very hands-on, youth-informed, interactive, high-quality learning experiences in digital or hybrid programming. I loved, Sarah, that you said, I put it in the chat so that I could remember it. Well, you said this, but I'm applying community building and learning can happen whether you're in the art room, the game room, I'll name the kitchen with Rich, or the Zoom room. I just love that. That's going to be the tagline of the next session, because we'll be here with you and we'll help workshop your ideas. We'll have some community builders. We'll have fun. You know, we'll have fun. So spread the word and bring as many PPTAs as you want. And we just want to close with a little reflection from you all. So Josie, if you'll share the screen one more time. And I'm going to ask you guys to either shout it out, take yourself off mute, or shout it out, or use that annotation tool for more practice. And on one side of the prize, would love to hear your thought about what's your prize as a facilitator of high quality youth development through art. High quality arts experience, what's a prize for you? And on the other side, I'd love for you to share what's one next step that you feel like you should take to think about implementing, infusing your program design for next semester with more youth voice.
I think that my prize right now will be engagement. I always think about one of the first things that I learned in club when I was in a club was kids vote with their feet, right? Which means they go to the program that they are most engaged in. And I really strive to see that as a facilitator of adults in the space too, and to support you guys to have the program that all the kids are voting for with their feet, or maybe with their keyboards now.
And let's just close with maybe a round of a takeaway. So what's one takeaway for you?
One of my takeaways is that we need to do more of this cross-organization collaboration. I'm so excited to hear from Vox today. I love you all, and we need to do stuff like this more.
In addition to being grateful for you all for showing up to participate, just an extra thanks to my Voxy colleagues for taking some extra time out of your day and your already busy jobs to share your successes and your modeling with these brilliant and talented teaching artists from our YAI community. So Josie, Rich, thank you for bringing your work to life in this forum too.